the last segment I have for you, or the last question, well, second to last question I have for you is, I mean, we're Laundromat Resource here. So do you have any resources that you recommend to people to help them grow their business or themselves personally?
Yeah. I mean, all of the resources that people name who come on this show. So books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, are really great to help you get into a good investment mindset, or at least understand the type of investing that you want to do. There's another book I really like called The Resilience Project, which was written by a guy who lives in Melbourne, Hugh Van Cuylenberg. And that's a really good book that talks about gratitude, which again, just like having been in business, things can get really stressful. So being good at gratitude, or being able to put things into perspective is really important. And then also there's a podcast called Dill and Friends, where it's an ex-athlete, Australian athlete, who interviews really high-achieving people, or really high-functioning people. And two of those episodes, one is an interview with a guy named Ben Crow, who worked for Nike and helped brand athletes. So, think like LeBron James and Tiger Woods and their brands that they've built. And he works with athletes now to separate their persona from them as a person. So that podcast is super interesting. And as business owners, separating the Jono, the laundromat owner, from Jono, the person, and still being able to go and hang out with my friends and family and not being a laundromat owner when I'm there, and being present with them is super important to me. And the second one from Dylan Friend podcast is an interview with a girl named Emma Murray. And she's an elite wellness coach. So she works with like Formula One drivers and other elite athletes on wellness and perspective. For people who have to make really split-second decisions that have really high impacts in terms of elite sport, and being able to help people sort of bring that back and take a lot of that pressure away. It's a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'll link to the podcast, Dill and Friends, DYL and Friends. Yep. I'll link to that. I was looking it up while you were talking about it. It looks really cool. So I'll link to that podcast. I'll link to, the books that he mentioned, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Resilience Project. Resilience Project, is that written in English or Australian?
It's narrated in Australian. I didn't read it.
Okay.
It's on Audible. So the guy who wrote it, it's his story and he tells it. So okay. It's great. It's awesome. Okay.
So if you get the audiobook, just make sure you're fluent in Australian so that you can understand it there, or get the translated copy. No, I'm just kidding.